Yo, welcome to Sig Slayers, the comic interview show, period. I'm Mike the Sig Slayer, chilling with Mark the Honorable Villain. What up, fam?
What's up, Mike? This guy has the magic touch, man. He's the best. He's one of the best artists in the game. Tell him who we got, Mike.
Joining us, we have heavyweight artist Jonathan Glapion joining us. But before we chop it up with Jonathan, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. All right. Our next guest, his work can be seen in Batman, Dark Knight's Metal, Death Metal, and Spawn, and is here to promote the latest issue of the Curse of Sherlee Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen of the Stash Slam, we bring to you the one and only Jonathan Glapion. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Hey, man.
Nice introduction.
Hey, well, thank you so much, man. And it's Mark and I are huge fans of all your work, and thank you for taking the time for the interview. We're going to just dive right on in. Right. So Jonathan, since it's your first time on the show, we like to get our guests comic book origin story. In other words, how did you get your first gig in pro comics?
Well, it's kind of a weird. I didn't really. I never went to any conventions or didn't really pursue a career in comics. I kind of stumbled into it. So I, excuse me. Long story short, I saw Entertainment Tonight had a segment called "How'd They Do That," where they used to show how something was made.
Yeah.
And I saw a segment of how Spawn was made, like Todd talking to Greg Capullo on the phone, and then talking about the process of how that book all came together. Like it went to the colors, Brian Haberlin in California, and so when I saw that, it kind of sparked an interest because I thought that you had to live in a studio situation to do comics. And I saw that everybody was kind of all over the United States and just they put this thing together. So then I was trying to figure out like, okay, well then how do you get into comics? Because like I said, I didn't go to conventions or any kind of signings or anything like that. And I happened to see this is when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona. I happened to see a flyer for Atomic Comics at the time, and it was a signing for with Spawn artists. It was the inker, Chance Wolf, colorist, and then the graphic designer was there doing a signing. I think Al Simmons was there. And so I see this flyer and I'm like, yeah, I'll go there and just ask questions or whatever. And I got lost, couldn't find it. And then when I gave up, I happened to notice that I was passing it. So I was like, oh, I'll go. There's a line like wrapped around the building. I didn't have a portfolio. I saw people with portfolios. I'm like, shit. So I get to the front and maybe things would have gone a different route had I talked to, had the penciler been the first person I spoke to. I don't know. But I was just curious. So I knew the inker was the closest thing to the penciler, that, he got the pages, he inked over the penciler's work. So, me being dumb and not knowing, what I was doing, I just asked him, like, so what tools do you use? What nib do you use? And he told me, and then I walked away. So that was it. And I just happened to stay in the comic shop, and I was looking to pick up some books and stuff like that. And when the signing was over, people started bombarding Chance Wolf with portfolios. And at that time, we were just kind of talking back and forth about art and process. And so he saw that I was an artist, but not necessarily a comic book artist. So we just, and it so happened that he had a very diverse background. He didn't just want to do comics. He was a sign painter. He could do everything. He could make things with his hands, like props and magic tricks and stuff like that. So we just started vibing about art. And he happened to, he needed an assistant. So he said, "Hey, I have take my business card. I'm looking for an assistant, and I can, give me a call in a couple of days, and I'll explain to you exactly what it is that I do and what I'm looking for." So he gives me his card, and the card was it was like a business card for like magic, not like Magic the Gathering, like a magician. so so I thought he was like kind of like bullshitting, like pushing me off. So I took the card. I was like, okay, whatever. I took it, and then I let a couple days go by, and I call him, and he explained to me what he's looking for. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Um, I would be interested in seeing what I could do, and he asked me where I lived, and I told him. I was like, yeah, I live in this apartment complex in Awatuki. And he's like, what's the name of it? And I told him this. I think I mentioned the name of the apartment complex. And he's like, really? And I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, I live in the same complex. So he actually lived like a couple buildings down around the corner from me.
Oh,
And
wow.
and that apartment complex was down the street from McFarlane's house. And so I didn't know, but I was in like this bubble. There's another guy, Rob Schweiger, who at that time he was a colorist for DC Comics, and he and Chance were friends. So I was actually in a community that was working professionals already in the industry, but because we never tend to leave the house, it's hard to run into each other unless we're at
Right.
an event. So I never knew that I was around all of that, and so for so I ended up going over to Chance's house and his apartment, and I said, look, I have a background, in art and watercolor painting and all that kind of stuff, but I've never done this. I'll do this. He wanted me to spot blacks, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, like, it's the most beginning part of inking that you can do, which nowadays a lot of people skip, and I think it's bad. But it's like the basic shapes of where you see solid blacks filled on a page. So I just told him, don't pay me. I'll do a book, or I'll do it for a month, and you don't have to pay me anything. That way, if I suck, neither one of us feels too bad. You didn't pay me anything. You're not out anything other than I messed up the artwork, I guess. And so that's kind of how I broke in, which is not necessarily pursuing it, but just happened to be willing to start from the beginning, even though I had a background in art and I had some things published in magazines and stuff like that. But I just told him, I said, just treat me like I don't know anything, so that way I can pick up everything that you know. And that's what he did. So, and then from there, I just learned the tools.
And what was that first project? You remember what was the first thing you worked on that you can remember?
Yeah, it was Curse of Spawn, and it was over Dwayne Turner. Yep.
Wow. And
Yep.
so
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, so I got lucky, even in the sense that starting out as an inker, I started out on like really good pencils. So, which is important. So everything was there, for me to see. So I got lucky in that sense.
And going back on that, you've inked some legendary stories, legendary titles. You're a talented artist in your own right, and so once you got your foot in the door and start inking, it's really hard. We've interviewed other ink artists
Mhm.
before, and they talk about that challenge of getting out of that cast of being just an inker. And so, how did you? What was the challenges of that, and how did you successfully navigate out of that?
Man, this is a loaded one. So I never liked when people totally bought into I'm an inker
Mm.
because I think for me, I'm just that's just the job position. I for me, I'm like I'm an artist. That's just the tools that I use for that particular craft. Um, um, so how did I think I just I was always drawing even when I was inking, and that was my paycheck. I was always drawing on the side, not as much once I got good at inking and started being requested, then I never had time to draw as much. So that was so then the challenge was how do I flip that? Um and that came not necessarily by my choice 100%. Um so if you like leapfrogging fast forward to working with Greg and the Batman stuff, um I mean, we worked like the books that we worked on were always like big event books. Or they were big things, and so it was a grind. And as the years went by, I think Greg started talking about retiring, and I start hearing like retiring, um, because for people that I'll be frank, for people that don't really know the industry, the penciler is always going to make more than an inker.
Right.
And you're not going to hear too many inkers talking about retirement because they have the money to retire. So the reality of it is however well we did together on Batman and all this other stuff, the pay gap was always going to be significant. So, and then, and Greg's been at this longer than me. He's a little bit older than me. So, if he can retire, bless him, man. He deserves every bit of that. Um, but I have 4 kids, so I can't retire. And I don't want to. So um, I had to kind of force myself down that lane of taking the chance of just drawing. And I just started out small. Like you could, if I flip through my Instagram feed, and I can see where I was just doing little head sketches, and me and my wife would go on walks in the morning because like my confidence wasn't there, and I was like just not sure. And she's like, just start out small, just do small things. Like I'll just do head sketches. And then Todd started noticing that stuff, and he actually talked to me. He did we were at, I don't know, it's Phoenix. I don't think it was Phoenix Fan Fusion or something like that at the time, or Fan Fest, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And he was doing a panel with Greg, and I dropped in to say hey to him, to those guys. And after the panel, Todd came up to me and he mentioned my Facebook stuff on Facebook, and he said, You're doing some cool stuff. I see on Facebook, these head sketches and stuff like that. He's like, maybe we can give you some covers. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think about that. I was like, okay. So fast forward to Spawn 300 came around, and Todd flew me to Phoenix to work on Spawn 300 with him, and I stayed at his house, and we worked on Spawn 300. And one day we were in office and we were talking about next steps, and I said, I don't know, maybe I don't know, be a cover artist. And he's like, nah, you don't want to do that. So that kind of, I was like, why? He's like, unless you're like J. Scott Campbell or Alex Ross, it's like everybody's a cover artist. Everybody wants to be a cover artist. It's like you'll learn more, and you'll garner a bigger fan base by doing interiors. So I was like, but that's terrifying. So And my whole career, man, I had people always saying, "Oh, you should do interiors." I was like, "I will never do interiors." So what I'm doing now is something I told everybody I would never do, even
Oh,
Todd. I
wow.
was like, "Nah,
So that was
I'm not
never
gonna
the
do it."
goal.
That was never the goal. That was never the goal. But I did actually. I skipped. So I don't know if you guys know about the Ozzy Osbourne Patient Number 9
Yeah.
album. So before, I think it was before the covers. I don't remember now. I think it was before the covers. Um, shit, I don't remember. But Todd called me to do Patient Number 9, and he wanted me to do the interiors, and it was for he didn't at the time he didn't tell me that it was Ozzy right at the very first of it. He didn't tell me that it was Ozzy, and then once he did, I remember calling my wife and tell because I couldn't. How can you turn that down? I didn't know what to do. I was like, ah, shit. I don't want to turn it down because I'm afraid to do interiors. Then I would feel defeated. So I was like, all right, okay. But then I called my wife and I was like, yeah, Todd called me to do this Aussie thing. I was like, it's kind of cool. Like maybe it's like a tribute thing. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, he's dead, right? It's just like, no, he's very alive. So I even thought like Ozzy was not alive, and I didn't know
That's
what this
hilarious.
was. um, so I was so terrified to do it, but Todd made it so comfortable. He's like, it's not going to be like your normal comic book. It's you know you're going to draw a bunch of crazy stuff, and I'm just going to write to it. So that took some of the fear away. And he's like, you'll just have total freedom, just draw whatever. And I thought that was like would make it easier, but it made it harder when someone gives you just freedom to do whatever. I do what? So that gave me the bug a little bit. Once I finished it, it did give me a bit of curiosity to see maybe I can do that. So that's kind of how I veered into almost forced into it.
Jonathan, I still want to talk about inking comics. We think
Yeah.
that inking's kind of becoming a lost art, and
Yep.
it's really where the product is finished, what you see on the page, and we're realizing that inking specific to comic creation and production. Can
Mhm.
you give us your philosophy on inking?
Um, my philosophy on inking. I mean, I remember in the beginning when I was starting out inking, I didn't think, man, I was so slow. I was so slow. I remember going to Todd's house and having a conversation and actually telling him there's no possible way I can do this for a living. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, dude, it like takes me like 16 hours to do a page. Like how and you always heard, a page a day, a page a day. I'm like 16, 18 hours a page. Like what? Like I'm not making that's barely minimum wage for as slow as I am. So, but what he told me was, he's like, because you care about every line. In the beginning, you care about every line. Every line is like you're trying for perfection, and that's not necessarily what it's about. So like my approach to inking was um respect the pencils that are there first. I don't ever want to put my voice on something and make it mine. It's supposed to be a collaborative thing. So I see like I won't name names, but there's
Mhm.
certain inkers that have such a distinct characteristic in their lines that they could ink three different pencilers but they all look the same because they're all under the thumb of that inker who doesn't um who won't l- take the art for what it is
Yeah.
and make adjustments. Like I don't ink I inking Tony Daniel, I don't ink Tony Daniel the way I would ink Greg. It's two different, that's two different artists. And I'll even give you kind of a funny one. That's so when me and Greg are working together on I think it was during Court of Owls, maybe. You guys know Victor Bogdanovic?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So a lot of people, they're like, he's like, he looks like Greg, he looks like Greg. And to me, and I'm not trying to knock him, but I'm looking, from my perspective, I'm looking at the real thing. I'm looking at Greg. So I see where he's influenced by Greg. So then when he asked if I would ink his work, I was very reluctant. I was like, I don't know, because I get where you're going with it,
Mhm.
and I don't want then it's a whatever stamp I put on it that I give Greg, then it gets edges a little closer and a little closer. Um, so what I would do would not, I would give him 50%. so, so I think in my philosophy is like you have to bring your own personality while maintaining the penciler's character. Like I'm a big fan. I'm actually a big fan of Greg's pencils, lead on paper, Greg's pencils. Um,
Right.
if you ever get a chance to look at his pencils, um, you can see the craftsmanship. You know what I mean? Nothing looks labored over. And I know there's labor involved. I know there's like hard days, but everything just looks so just professionally done. So then it makes you want to kind of like, bring your level up. Uh, but what I wanted, what was most important for me was that my line didn't obscure Greg's line. So it still looked like Greg, just maybe enhanced a bit or little nuances of what I like to do here and there. Um, so I don't know if that like I think I'm rambling, but I don't know if that
No,
that
I know.
helps.
No,
Yeah.
what I got from it is that, well, one, you respect the art, right? So you respect the
Mhm.
line that's there, but then you also have your own interpretations of each artist. So it's not
Right,
cookie cutter.
right.
And then the other thing I would say too, like kind of in response to that a little bit, like going with like some of the old school guys, right? Where like if you're talking about like the 70s and the 80s and stuff, and
Mhm.
maybe a little bit like maybe early 90s, but inking started to make a fundamental shift in the 90s, according to
Mhm.
not just myself, but longtime inkers. But
Right,
the pencils were more left to interpretation way back when because they were just cranking out
right,
so much stuff, and they had
right.
multiple inkers on one piece and stuff. Like
Yep.
like we talk about the Neil Adams, Krusty Bunker days where they were just doing body parts and
Well,
what I mean.
yeah. Well, I think back then the inkers were more finishers than they are today.
Yeah.
Like you probably had more inkers who just fundamentally knew how to draw. They just may not
Right,
be able to draw fast enough to to be their own penciler. You know what I mean? So you
right,
kind of, that's where I got in. That's where I can stay. I'm just not fast enough to pencil on a regular basis, but I can ink. And because I can pencil, because my drawing foundation is strong enough, I can solve some of these problems when things are loose. Because a lot of inking, like I tell a lot of younger aspiring inkers, which is becoming more rare, is a lot of inking is problem solving. It's figuring out how to um, where to use certain tools, where not to use certain things. Um, So to give you an example, you have to remember I'm following up after Danny Mickey over Greg, which is like ridiculous.
Right.
So even there, I had to make a conscious decision and really sit and think about it before I even, started really digging into the Batman pages. What was the look? Because I can't go down Danny's lane. There's some things I can do to kind of hang in there, but that's Danny's voice. So I had to find my own thing over Greg. So what ended up happening was like I started where Danny was very, very liney and very detailed, and like where he would do 1,000 lines, I would figure out, okay, how can I use a brush in dry brush to give the illusion that there's a lot of lines, but it's not a lot of like worked lines or whatever. Um,
Mm.
and I even remember having a conversation with Greg, and he said he even started drawing more with the side of his pencils a bit when he started seeing the inks back, because I was inking different than Danny, and I was giving some of those chunky rendering lines, with the side of the brush, and a little bit of dry brush here and there, and that wasn't how he was inked. So, and then in with the Batman stuff, I was also listening to some of the fans kind of complain in the beginning about Greg coming on to Batman because they just thought he was going to do a Spawn version of Batman. And I think what they were thinking was a lot of rendering, a lot of like they were stuck on that old school, like,
Right.
technique or whatever. So it really made me want to pivot and do something different. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it's
That's interesting. I want to switch gears to the Curse of Shirley Johnson, a
mhm,
project you're both penciling and inking.
yeah.
First, I mean, obviously you work closely with Todd McFarlane Productions, but
Mhm.
how'd you get involved with the project, and then also what creative choices can you explore with the Curse of Shirley Johnson?
So the Curse of Shirley Johnson it wasn't something that Todd approached me about. It was completely an idea that me and Daniel Enriquez, who is a friend of mine and also another inker, we had the idea that we pitched to Todd.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, yeah. So we would, so if I'm going way back to DC days, I had Daniel Enriquez assist me, um, and I kind of helped him get in more with DC as an inker. And so through the years, we would just, when we're inking, working on deadlines and stuff together, we would just be talking on the phone or Google Hangouts, video Hangouts, just to keep each other awake. So, um, fast forward all these years later, um, I'm in a weird spot career wise because the work is slowing down, not in a bad way. It's just Greg doesn't want to grind anymore. And so I have these gaps where things are just a little slower, which is where I kind of filled in with covers and stuff like that. But that whole time when I would be on the, me and Daniel would be on the phone, we would be talking about what could we transition to do. Like he likes to write. I have no interest in writing. Like I have ideas, but I don't want to sit and write something. Um, and I was already drawing and stuff like that. And so we start talking about these ideas, and we actually had two or three book ideas that we could have pitched to Todd, but this was the one that we pitched. Um, and we wanted to expand the Spawn universe. We didn't want to come in and do rehash what people have already seen. So we were just like, what if we like, how can we expand the Spawn universe? And the reason I say expand the Spawn universe, honestly, is because I wanted to create new characters. I don't want to just keep drawing the characters that were already created in my own way or whatever. I wanted to create new characters. So we had no idea how to pitch anything. I think Daniel was even Googling how to pitch. And so um, we end up setting up a meeting with Todd and Thomas Healy to pitch. Uh, it was called No Home. It was originally called There Is No Home Here. So um, we pitched it to him in the Zoom meeting, and you get the screens and by now you guys know, like, where the book takes place and everything. So I'm not spoiling anything, but as soon as we said hell, Todd was like, I don't want to do another hell book. I'm like, oh fuck. So we're like, oh man, that's not good. But I didn't know. We were trying to figure out how to get him to see hell from our perspective. Like, so we were like, so we had to sell this thing, and we had to kind of pivot a little bit. And Daniel had this idea about the one little thing that got Todd's attention was Sherlee Johnson, the little girl that only showed up in issue 5 in a couple panels, Billy Kincaid's last victim. And that's what tied it to the Spawn universe. And I think it kind of struck a chord. Todd got interested. You could see him kind of lean forward. And by then we were totally winging it, man. Like, we're like, yeah, let's sell this. Like, because then when he said it in the beginning, you could see the screen, and our screens looked frozen. Like, we're literally, the screen looked frozen because I didn't know what to say, and he didn't know what to say, but I was hoping he would come up with something, and he came up with the Sherlee Johnson angle, and then we're like, yeah, and we don't. Hell to us isn't necessarily all rocks and fire. It's like it's a nightmare. It's when they say, like, when hell freezes over, I'm thinking visually, why can't it snow in hell? We can make hell whatever we want, and it's not a hell that you've shown in your book. Like, we just want this little corner of our hell, and to expand the Spawn universe. And if we start bringing in other characters, we kind of like to pay homage to some of those characters that we kind of all grew up reading in Spawn. And I think it's a cool nod, because it's like the guys who have always collected Spawn can get into it. But then you have a new generation who, with our book, you don't have to have read any of Spawn. So that's kind of like, I think a lot of people think like Todd came to us for this book, but we were desperate. We went to Todd.
Yeah, man, I totally didn't know that, man. Yeah. I'm glad you shared that story.
And here's another little nugget that Todd tells. So Sherlee is actually his mom's name, and it's how she spells her name. And so there's a lot of cool little nuggets in there. But yeah.
Jonathan, I want to talk about your workflow structure at McFarlane Productions. Is there any difference over there than working at Marvel or DC?
Yeah, it's a big difference. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so it's like a machine, a big, large machine, or hanging out with you guys and drawing shit. So and this is not like a slight to TMP. It's just a bigger production at DC. They just have a massively bigger production, and there's also a lot of red tape that we don't have. Like, when I tell you guys that we are undisturbed, we are not messed with for anything. We have moments where we were like lost because we don't get any interference. It's just, this is your book, and because it's not that tied to Spawn, it's new stuff with some of the Spawn connection. We get to kind of explore in a different way that probably other Spawn books creators aren't able to, maybe. so in that sense, it's like, you take two guys who have never done a book. Neither one of us has ever done a book. and it's like, yeah, go for it, guys. It's, do whatever, do your thing. But a lot of times in the beginning, we were just like, okay, what do we do now? And I guess anything, So we were kind of, in the beginning, it was not as neat as you might think it would be. For us, it was a bit stressful because I didn't learn storytelling from anybody other than paying attention to what Greg does just by working over him. And remember, I'm the guy that never wanted to do interiors. So I had to really dig in, and it's a big hurdle. And so not having, in the beginning we thought, like you guys might be thinking like, oh man, we'll get mentored by Todd and no, no, no. So it's a very different thing.
What's the most rewarding thing about doing it, especially us knowing that you're the reluctant penciler, now you're penciling multiple issues on an original story that you guys pitched? What's the reward feel like?
For me, it's like, it's all personal. It's like, I don't like the idea of not doing something because I'm afraid, and that really stuck with me. Like, there was a lot of times where it's just like, I have imposter syndrome just like anybody. I typically tend to not like 90% of what I put on a page. But the one thing that inking taught me, so I have the only reference that I have to pull from to do what I'm doing now is the inking. And the one thing that inking taught me, inking in comics and working in comics, is you have to move forward. You always have to just keep moving forward. Every day is not going to be your best day. Every panel is not going to be, a masterpiece. It's really the volume of work that you put in over time. And I like the way Todd once told me, he's like, your favorite panel is not going to be somebody else's favorite panel. So in that sense, by the volume of work doesn't really matter, you just have to keep moving forward. And I think, so for me, the most rewarding thing is getting over hurdles. Because I get, you work and you're doing, in the beginning, it's like everything you're drawing is the first time you're drawing something. Fight scene, whatever, an emotional scene or whatever. It's like, everything's hard, because going back to the days where I was slow at inking and Todd told me, you're slow because you care about every line and because you just don't have a Rolodex of information in your head that you can rely on. When I think about that, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. I haven't drawn, 300 kids smiling or 300 fight scenes. When you see Jim Lee drawing a fight scene or whatever, it's like autopilot. Like, how? Because he's drawn that so many times. So the rewarding part is really just like finishing a page and moving on and feeling some sort of satisfaction that, you didn't get defeated and just quit. And it is fun, like, what we're doing. And we're working in kind of the way that Todd and Greg worked, in a sense where a lot of times me and Daniel are on the phone. There's not full script. He plots it out. We talk about the plot in the beginning before we start, where we want to go. And then a lot of times it's like, we'll get on the phone and I'm asking him, so what are you thinking here? Or what's the emotion of this character here? What's going on? And we'll end up just talking about it. And then I lay out the page and go from there. I don't have really a process, man, because I don't know, like, I see guys, man, like it's a terrible example because he's so good. Matteo Scalera,
Yeah.
like this dude, man, I don't know, he's not human, for one. Um, but I see like he's so meticulous in his process, and I'm just like, how? I don't. Have you ever seen his layouts?
No, no.
His layouts look like finished pages, dude. They're small, but they look. You could print that shit. And um, so I'm referencing this stuff. I'm like, feeling discouraged, but I'm like, everybody has their own way of working, though.
Right.
So I don't. All this time, I'm thinking I'm doing it wrong, but maybe I'm just doing it how I am comfortable doing it. So
Right.
yeah.
Going back to Greg, worked a lot with him, some similar work, big blockbuster hits with Greg. What is it about that workflow dynamic that works so well with him?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. Because I think there's some nuances in Greg's work that I relate to in my own work. And I'm not by any means saying that I draw like Greg, but there's some subtle things that I notice that sometimes I wonder if other people notice it. Because you can put, well, now you can see like you can put three different inkers on Greg, and they can be interpreted three different ways. Like Tim
We're noticing that a
Townsend,
lot lately now since he went to Marvel.
yeah, yeah,
People have been talking about the Deadpool stuff and how people be saying it
yeah,
looks a lot different.
yeah. It looks different. The reality is not everybody is a match. Um, Tim's an amazing inker. Sandra Hope, she just inked a cover over Greg, and she crushed it. Um, it's funny, and then like the biggest reference is Danny inking Greg for all those years. That was always my reference point. Um, but what I think I surprised Greg, and we've had conversations before, is um when I told him once, I was like, yeah, I don't know if you know, like I didn't reference Danny's inks over you. I referenced your inks over you. And he's like, really? I hate inking. And I was like, yeah, but you ink you better than anybody because you understand the true intention of what you're putting on the page. That's why to me, Greg's inks look so good when he inks himself. I love Greg's inks. But he's always like, oh no, you're the master. It's like, no, I'm just like the fancy guy because I have more time to do that particular thing that you don't want to do because you already drew the page.
Right.
So, I have that luxury that you don't have. By the time you get to inking, you're like, "Fuck, I just want to be done with this page. Um, Unless you're penciling super, super loose. Yeah, I think it's just like I said, I don't know. I think it's just some band members, man, they just it's just like peanut butter and jelly. That's what I told Gray. It's like we're just like peanut butter and jelly. We just go together. Um, but I'll give you guys some fun little information.
All right.
I don't. I've said it on other interviews, but I don't know how much it gets out there. For as much as me and Greg gel together, um, a lot of people think that we're like talking on the phone during Court of Owls and like, oh yeah, do this and do that. We never spoke. We never. There was barely emails. Most of the time, working with Greg on Court of Owls, and it got a little different on Death of the Family. It started to we started to communicate a little bit more. But Court of Owls, like I had no idea whether Greg liked my shit or not. So I had to be comfortable and confident in what I did. Um, and I think the one thing that probably helped that is growing up in the era before social media, because there was not that instant gratification. You didn't get that feedback right away. So you
Right.
just left wondering all the time. So then you just kept trying and trying and trying. Um, so yeah, it's a funny thing. Me and
That's
Greg didn't get close like even friendship close until after I was no longer on Batman, and then Danny came in, and then we reconnected on Reborn.
Right. Yeah. With Mark Miller. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So once he asked me to do Reborn, it just so happened we did a show together in Miami, and we were staying in the same hotel, and like my wife and we had our two little kids, and Greg and his wife were there, and my wife and Greg's wife and Jamie, they get along really good. Jamie's so sweet. But that was the first time I hung out with Greg and actually talked to Greg. I like hanging out by the pool at the bar having drinks, and I was like telling stories about growing up and stuff. It's like, you seem a lot like me. In a lot of ways, man. We're a lot alike. So I think like that's why I tell people like Reborn is a really cool reference point for like I think when me and Greg's work got really strong together.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I started inking the Court of Owls and Death of the Family stuff was inks over pencils. I mean inks
Right.
over blue line.
Blue
inks
line.
over
Blue line. Right.
And that was a trust thing. Greg never said it. He did say in the beginning it's kind of up to me, but I sensed that he didn't trust. That's a big thing, trusting somebody at where his caliber, where he is in his career at that time, to have like this new guy coming in after he worked with Danny for so many years, he knew what to expect. So it was that thing again where I started comics where I told Chance, look, you don't have to pay me. And if you don't like it, we're good. We can split ways. Nobody got screwed, whatever. It was kind of like that with Greg. I was like, if you want, I can do the blue line and we'll just sell the art as a pair. And I will never sell any artwork outside of you. We'll team up, we'll sell it together. That's why you can never buy Batman pages separately. You can't buy the pencils without the inks. So he liked the idea of that. And then but the blue line stuff, man, it was a challenge because a lot of Greg's work is very subtle, and probably I didn't have at the time I didn't have the best scanner, the best printer. So I was getting what I thought was perfect, but now I have like real legit, like really good stuff. So even the stuff that I have now, and if I ink over something blue line, I still prefer inks over pencils. So I think I had to, towards the tail end of Death of the Family, that's when we started having kind of like problems. Because somebody pointed out something online. They were like, they took a little character. I mean, this character is probably like that big, dude. I don't know if you can see. Where's my camera? It's right like that big. And somebody posted it online on Twitter when Twitter was Twitter. But they blew it up. And it looked terrible. It looked so bad. And I remember Greg had a problem with it. We used to never talk about this story. But I feel comfortable talking about it now because we're friends and we text every day. And he was like, this is like slipping inker. And then I start getting all these texts from people. And I'm like, what? So I get on Twitter. I'm like, he's like, hey, he's been slipping a lot. I was like, what? So we're going back and forth. And I'm like, dude, I think it's I think it's the blue line stuff, man. It's like, I think I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but it may not be, because there's a lot of subtlety. Like if you print blue lines too dark, it starts to look too muddy. But then if you print it too light, and if you have a penciler like Greg who does very subtle things, you sort of can lose that mid-level of information. So that's probably what was going on. But in my head, I'm thinking I'm nailing everything. But Greg was like, well, what? So
is that what led to Danny going on to Batman after? So that's what happened?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
So yeah. And I got so mad, I asked for 3 books, and they gave me 3 books. So then here comes Daniel Enriquez to help me do these 3 books.
Dang,
I just
that's
so,
crazy. I'm sorry.
so that's what happened, and I think it made a little bit of a weird thing between me and Danny, because I never had an issue with Danny, but then it made things kind of weird with me and Danny, and I was like, what the fuck? So but I told Greg, like, I don't remember, like, it wasn't anything nasty, like, it wasn't like, if I look back and remember, it wasn't anything like, oh, fuck off, or I don't know if I can cuss on you guys things, so sorry if
You good. You good.
it's like, it wasn't like that at all. And I just was not interested in, like, trying to plead my case necessarily. It was from professional back and forth. It was like, okay, I understand if that's the direction you want to go, that's cool. And but Greg did, he looked out for me. He made sure DC, like, hey, make sure he has work. Like, he's always looked out for me. So it wasn't anything like bad, but like, then Bleeding Cool came in and tried to make it this controversy of how I got fired, and it's like, none of that's true, dude. Yeah, like, oh, you got fired over an email. I'm like, no, none of that's true. But I even talked to the guy, and I was like, no. He's like, do you want to say something? I'm like, no, I don't want to say anything. There's nothing to say. And then I got DC contacting me, like, just, we'll take care of it, because I couldn't believe how blown up it got online. But I guess it was the big book at the time, and it was like the thing.
Yeah, I mean,
But
New 52 Batman was, and you're segueing into a question I want to ask. I mean, just real quick, going back to issue 1, they're renumbering the whole line of DC during this time. The first time they relaunched Batman since the beginning, which was in 1940. What was it like just being on the new #1 Batman? I mean, obviously it's with Greg Capullo, but what was that feel like landing that gig?
If it was Smurfs, I would have been this. I would have felt the same. I didn't care that it was Batman. I just wanted to keep inking Greg, because you have to remember, I was already at DC before Greg came to DC.
Exactly.
And I was on Batman with Tony Daniel for a stint, and and Tony, he was going through inkers with, like, underwear, like, so I was like, but so for me, I was already inking Greg on Haunt, but I wasn't getting to do it necessarily the way I wanted. I wanted to ink over the pencils, but when I came on to Haunt, Todd wanted me to ink it digitally. And I'm like, why? It's like, we'll just keep it the same. I'm inking stuff digital, you ink it digital, and we go back and forth. I'm like, all right. So I'm inking digital, and then the last issue, I think it was, I inked over Blue Line, because I wanted to show Greg what I would look like over him. And at that time, I was bugging DC. I was like, have you guys tried to get Greg over here? And the editor, I can't remember who the editor was that I was working with. He's like, yeah, I think they did, years ago, but they could never get things to line up. And I never do this, but I gave him Greg's phone number. I think his email. I was like, well, you should try to at least get him to do some covers. It was only because I wanted to keep inking Greg. And I know that he was ending Haunt. He wasn't going to be on Haunt anymore. But I was like, and I was at DC. I could have kept just whatever DC stuff. But it was fun. I was having fun. So I was like, and I'm not saying I'm the reason that Greg came to DC. But I sure was bugging the shit out of him.
I want to go back to your original stint on Batman. I did have that question in. This is during the Grant Morrison era. You started with Batman 670. That was Tony Daniel's first issue as well. But did you know? I don't know if you knew this. I want to ask, because we're bad historians over here. Did you know that you inked the first Black Batman?
I did.
Yes.
I inked it for no.
Yes,
I didn't
Batman
know that.
672. Batman 672. When that Batman that took over the police station, we had the big double page spread. The guy that ended up, that right there,
Oh shit! Oh, you
the
have the
Bat
page.
Devil.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, So the in 2 issues later, Grant Morrison, because like it was all about the 3 Batman, the 3 ghosts of Batman, right? But that one was like the main one. All the other ones died.
Yeah.
He survived. He went through Batman R.I.P. He's actually the new Azrael, and his name is Michael Lane. And so you get his origin story in Batman 674, 2 issues from there.
Yeah.
Which you also did some of the, I think you and Sandu did like split the inking jobs on 674. But like page 1, you see like he's a cop and you see him and he's a black dude. So that's the first black dude to don the cape and cow. And that was and that's the issue right there. So I didn't know if you knew that. So I just wanted to.
I did not know that.
Yeah, man. I thought that was
a fun
dope.
fact.
That's a great fun fact, man. And my man Mark got the page to show you.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
All right, Mark.
That's really cool.
All right, Jonathan, I want to talk about your metal work. So you were on both Dark Knight's Metal and Dark Knight's Death Metal. What was your experience doing that, and was the schedule grueling for that? That's
horrible. It was horrible. Yep, really bad. And I think it was because so Greg, and he said this in quite a few interviews. I'm only doing Batman. I'm never doing a team book. And I guess only Scott can talk him out of that because here we are on Death Metal and Metal with all these characters. And that book was crazy. It seemed like, and I'll talk to you guys about it from just like an art perspective of like actually grinding on that book. I understand it was like so many characters and but Greg's drawing start getting smaller and it's like the characters start getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Dude, at one point my wife got me this like magnifying goggle glass. Which I never end up using. I'm like, God, these characters are so fucking small. I can barely get a nib in the. And I'm like, so I would text Greg, like, these characters are so small. Like, is it how? He's like, yeah, well, I had to suffer first. so, and then we would cuss about Scott. And Greg's like, yeah, and Scott's on the fucking beach.
All right, so last year you was at MegaCon. We were all at MegaCon. I actually was at a panel where Scott's like super rock star right now. Absolute Universe is taking over everything. Yeah. But one thing he said, and when Scott gets to talking, he starts giving you spoilers for shit that people don't even know what's happening. He'd be telling you stuff years down the line. You're like, what? Like crazy. But one thing that kind of slipped over everybody's mind was that he mentioned that there's going to be a metal trilogy. Did you know that?
A metal. When was this?
So last year. So this is last year at So this is last year Orlando MegaCon at his panel. So this is in the height of all of this absolute stuff. It was a DC panel, and Scott's talking about the future and all of that. And he said, "Yeah, man. By the way," he said he said in issue 15 of Absolute Batman that the Joker is going to come out. That just happened. So that's like a year later. Yeah. A year ahead, he was like, "Oh, in this issue, you're going to get this." And I'm like, "Dude, shut up. You're spoiling everything." Yeah. But then he said, and also, we're going to have a metal trilogy. There's a third installment. Did you know that?
No. I mean, sometimes we'll run into each other at the show or like at a DC party or some kind of thing, and sometimes he'll mention some stuff. But no, I don't think I can't remember him mentioning a trilogy. I do remember him mentioning. He didn't say it was Absolute Batman, but he did not Absolute Batman. The metal stuff. he did mention the idea, like he had this idea for us to do.
So when next time you see him, like say, hey man, like you said at MegaCon, you know.
Well, he's been wanting, like, he's like, I want us to do something, you know, one last thing together. And Greg is so Marvel right now. So, you know, but he before I knew about Absolute Batman before Absolute Batman came out.
Okay, so you knew about that. You was in the in on that, huh?
Yeah, he kind of like was saying like, I got something really cool for us to do. And so it you know, that thing is a whole. I'm so happy for Scott. But he's so like just genuinely nice, you know, all the time. At least to me, though. um, but yeah, he every now and then he'll drop little nuggets, and then I know he definitely wants to do some stuff again. I think it's weird because we're all kind of splintered off into our own
Right.
little things, and then it's extra weird for me because what I'm doing now pays a lot more than what I was being an inker. So it's like, you know, for those guys, you know, for those guys, I would do it. You know, for those guys, I would do it. But yeah, so so a funny thing. I don't know. I should fuck it. So the Curse of Sherlee Johnson, and I'm going back to how this kind of also how I ended up doing the Curse of Sherlee Johnson. I was supposed to originally go to Marvel with Greg to do that stuff. So for me, it was a crossroad. I had to choose, which was like the hardest thing career wise that I could imagine doing, because I was safe working with Greg on, you know, we were working together and we were really dialed in, and there was no unknowns. I knew, you know, with this, I could totally just like shit the bed and like not have anything. And I'm not one to like necessarily go groveling back to anywhere. So I remember talking, Todd calls me after, you know, I had to tell Greg that I couldn't do the Marvel stuff because I didn't want to. That was kind of lingering, and I was like, oh man. Then this opportunity came up where we pitched this stuff, and I was like, God, how can I do both? There's no way I could do both because somebody's going to get shortcut.
Right.
I know how it works, and I wouldn't feel good about like just phoning it in over Greg. But then how do I look shortcutting myself, giving myself less time when I need all the time in the world? So, and this is a lesson for some, you know, people listening and interested in this kind of conversation, but sometimes you got to bet on yourself.
That part.
And you can't let fear or failure stop you from moving forward, because if failure is fine if you're willing to get up and do it again. It's failing and then never, you know, that's kind of where I kind of like have a problem. But everybody has their own personal limits or whatever. So I get a call from Todd, and he was telling me, he was giving me, Todd has not ever given me fatherly advice. He wasn't telling me what to do, but he was giving me different perspectives to look at it. And he gave me what I just told you guys. There's the known and then there's the unknown. You can take a chance on yourself, which is totally fine, or you can keep working with Greg, which is absolutely fine, expected. And he said, but you'll never know if you don't take the chance. You know, you may never know. But then he said something that was super cool, which complicated the situation, because he was like, I'll wait for however long you want if you want to help your friend and work on that book with Greg. You know, he's like, oh shit. He's like, you know, he's our friend. We love the dude, and you know, if you want to do that, you can do that and do this, and I'll wait for however long it takes you to get this stuff done.
Wow.
And I was like, man, damn, really? He didn't make the choice easier. So I told him, I said, well, if I don't, my fear is if I don't just take the leap, that I might talk myself out of it later. And then Greg will be at a point where he can just retire, and I'm not at that point. So then are those opportunities there? Sometimes you have to seize opportunities when they're in front of you, because nothing's guaranteed, you know.
Right.
And I've had a long career of no guarantees. so I just you know, that's how I took that leap, you know.
Jonathan, we have 2 more questions for you.
Mhm.
I want to ask you one. You have a decorated career. Is there a project in your career that you're most proud of?
Curse of Sherlee Johnson. That was easy.
Okay.
I'm super proud. I'm super proud of everything that me, Greg, and Scott did together. Like, genuinely super proud of that stuff. But the Curse of Sherlee Johnson is a thing. It's 2 inkers that never did a book before, and you know, most people are like, what? You know, everybody kind of stereotypes everybody in comics is like, oh, if you're an inker, you're just an inker, and if you're a colorist, you're just a colorist. Some colorists are painters. Some, you know, some inkers draw, some inkers like to write. So you know, it's hard to not have this book be the most proud project. It's difficult, but you know, it hopefully the more I do it, the easier it'll get.
That's a great way to end it. And this last question, is there something that we haven't talked about you want the fans to know about? Any upcoming appearances, any new projects, any more news about the Curse of Sherlee Johnson?
No, well, damn, I don't have my Daniel's much better at like all the dates of when stuff comes out. I'm just so working. So
I think issue 4 comes out soon, right?
Yeah. So that comes out. I'd have to
21st, I think.
Terrible. Is there any new? Well, me and Daniel have a couple of ideas for some cool stuff that we'd like to do, but right now our focus is Curse of Sherlee Johnson. Like, trying to really keep that going. Fans seem to be into it. I'm just trying to get better at the craft.
Awesome.
So I'm looking at it from a different perspective, maybe. The C2E2 is probably my first show I think that I'm doing this year.
Okay.
So I'll be C2E2, and I don't know dates or anything. My wife does all this. So I'll be doing C2E2 for sure, unless we're in World War III. I will be doing San Diego Comic-Con, New York. I always do New York. That's my favorite show. Those are I just turned down MegaCon yesterday. Because last year I did way too many shows. Way too many shows, man. That wrecked me. So this year is a little bit lighter, but C2E2 will be my first one, and then those main ones. Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, man, this has been a blast, man. A great interview, man. I did not know that you were a reluctant penciler, now turned penciler. you know, going on issue 4, your book where you're doing everything.
Yeah.
So just know you always have a home here on the Sig Slayers station. Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. This is Sig Slayers. I'm Mike, speaking for Mark and Jonathan Glapion. We are out. Peace.
Sig Slayers.